Namaste. Smeared with ash, draped in animal hide, holding a skull in hand, remote, withdrawn. The friends are dogs and snakes. He waits until it's time to end it all. He is the one for everyone. He's called by many names, but we know him as Shiva. Welcome to a special conversation with architect, art historian, and culture enthusiast, Professor Madhusudhanan Kalaichealvan. In today's conversations, we're going to be discussing many aspects of this enigmatic personality. The one who doesn't care about being politically correct, who has his own dress code and keeps very strange company. Welcome, Madhu.
Namaskaram, Akka. It's my pleasure to be here around. Any discussion with you is delightful. And when it is about Indic subjects and about something which is very favorite to me to talk about.
I know. So here is a Vaishnavite talking to a Shaivite. And I know this is going to be interesting. So all of you, please listen. Madhu, I want to start with the fact that most of our audience who are watching and listening will be dancers, performing artists, and certainly members of the creative community. So I want to begin with the very icon of Nataraja Shiva. Now, the Nataraja Shiva that dancers know of, we know is the Ambalam of fire, and he stands with a certain gesture with his two front hands, and the other two hands are holding two other objects. His left foot is raised, and below his right foot is a small gnome-like demon. Now tell me about the iconography, not just of this iconography, but when was the earliest kind of Nataraja iconographies that you know of in India?
Well, that is a very interesting question because we are so used to this form of Shiva dancing, the way that you described, what technically we call as the Ananda Tandavam, that which is considered as the cosmic dance. But did it just happen that way? And when was the first ever Ananda Tandavam icon worship? Where was it? Is there any verbal description in the sacred texts about it? So this can be attempted with some historic tools, and that's where art history comes to our help. Arguably, let's keep aside Ananda Tandavam for a moment. Let's just think about Shiva dancing. So some kind of hand gestures, legs raised, and he's dancing with some attributes. Let's just frame ourselves with that in mind. In that case, the earliest available image of Shiva dancing happens in Orissa. That's around the 3rd, 4th century in the Kalinga Desha. That is when the earliest available. Maybe they were icons prior to that. But today we are the oldest that we have managed to get is this form of Shiva dancing. And quite interestingly, he's not performing the Ananda Tandavam there. In fact, the legs are balanced in what is called as the Chatura Tandavam, where the left foot is like rested on the pedestal and the right is partly lifted like that. So in a very stylistic pose that is also, and he's multi-armed. And the best is he holds a snake more like the Prabhavali, like the orb. He just balances a snake, holds it on both ends of the snake, and it's raised above to form a curve, that which defines the cosmos, the Prabhavali. So this is the earliest available.
So one of his many arms is holding the snake above like an orb.
Yes.
And how are the front two arms?
Okay.
What gestures are they?
The usual attributes we have are Abhaya Hasta, that which blesses you. So that is there. Apart from that, in some cases, around the same time, in the other murtis from around the same time, he is seen with a veena to play as he dances. In the Kapala Patra, or holding an independent snake all by itself, the Parashu All these are the various other aspects that generally ornament Shiva as a dancer in the early stages. This kind of continues not just with the Kalinga Desa, that's present-day Odisha, gets extended to central India, all the way up to even the western end, Rajasthan and Gujarat, in some cases in Bihar also. This style gets extended to Ellora, the Elephanta school, and so all these areas, the complete central belt, and seeps into down south till even the Badami Chalukya's time, parts of Karnataka, Andhra, all these areas up until say 8th century, roughly 1200, 300 years back. Till then, it is the Chatura Tandavam, wherein he's having his leg like that and one pose fixed like that. So that's the pose that he generally seen with. But that's a dancing pose.
But the left hand was usually in a Dola Hastam, isn't it? Not really crossed.
Yeah, the Dola Hastam is also very common in all these cases. And in fact, the earliest form of dancing Shiva in South India, so far discovered, in Tamil Nadu especially, is from the cave temple in the periods of Mahendra Varma Pallava, the most illustrious Pallava king from around the 6th, 7th century. It was during his time that several cave temples were built, most of them dedicated to Shiva. So there is one in a small village called Siyamangalam near Chengalpet, Chennai Chengalpet Bell. And in that cave temple, the oldest available form of dancing Shiva is seen here in Tamil Nadu. There, he poses his left hand in the Dola Hastam. But the left leg has been raised. He's raised the left leg by them. Again, this form with the Dola Hastam, with his left hands just falling down free and his left leg raised above, that's called as the Bhujanga Trasitam. One of the Karanas, of course, and that's one of the earliest form of dancing Shiva that you see here. The difference, major difference, is the left hand has still not extended to the right end, holding it this way. So that hasn't happened till now, till the 7th century. So it is an evolution that we get to see. And if you're going to collect samples around India, dancing form of Shiva is undoubtedly one of the oldest forms of Shiva, apart from, the Shiva Lingam and the Mukha Lingam aspects. But if you consider dancing form, there is a very clear evolution over periods. Philosophy has added to it. Puranic episodes, traditional beliefs, all of this has contributed towards defining this form and producing this out of stone or bronze or various other materials for an object of worship. So this evolution is pretty clear. So here in Tamil Nadu, the very popular Ananda Tandavam, the cosmic dance that Shiva presents with the Damaru and the flames of fire balanced in his hand, with the Dola Hastam going across his chest like that, and his left foot raised up, and with his right leg planted firmly on what looks like a demon, a dwarf demon called as Apasmara Purusha, a personification of your ignorance, that arrogance, that which you submit at his lotus feet, you're blessed. So, this kind of a philosophical backing to Ananda Tandavam happens starting from around 8th, 9th century. And with Shaiva Siddhanta school flourishing almost at the same time, this form was made as the most popular version of Shiva's dance all over South India. And that's exactly how he landed up being an integral part of any dance presentation.
I want to go to the very name itself, Shiva. When we look at examples in the Tamil Sangam canon, we see the 5 landscapes, and we have gods assigned to each of these landscapes. But Shiva doesn't figure in that. He's not, he doesn't appear, and the name Shiva doesn't. But he is referenced quite often, isn't he, by so many other names. Can you share some of those names that he's known by? And I'm talking of Tamil Sangam era, which is 2nd century of the Common Era. So yeah, tell us about that, Madhu.
Okay, Tamil Sangam, it's between the 2nd century before Common Era to the 2nd, 3rd century Common Era. The pace is there. But yes, as you pointed out, the very word Shiva is not referred to in any of the anthologies, Sangam anthologies. But that aside, all other special attributes, that which are unique only to Shiva, is all referred in very beautiful Tamil titles, as Tamil titles, everywhere around. He's called as Tashidai Polinda Arundavattom, the one with long matted hair, hair locks, that which falls all the way around, touching the ground, And he's a great tapasvi, Arun Tavatto. That's how he's understood. Now that's a very characteristic feature of Shiva. Karaimidatru Annal, the one with a kind of a shade of blue that occupies his throat. The episode where he consumed the alahala poison. So that is again the most unique attribute of Shiva. No other god ever shares this attribute, the throat being blue in complexion, deep blue in color. He's called as Mukkat Chelvan, the one with three eyes. The great one with three eyes, Mukkat Chelvan. As we know, Surya, Chandra, and Agni become the three eyes of Shiva. Then about Ardhanarishwara, he being as Ardhanarishwara, he's called as Neela Meni Balilai Bhagattu Uruvan, the one who has shared his divine physique, a half of his physique, with that woman who is green and bluish in color. That's Parvati. The Parvataraja Kumari, that she is born in the mountains. So she occupies half of his divine physique, Ardhanarishwara concept. So that is being referred to. Very interestingly, he's called as Malai Talai Vaitava. Malai is basically pouring down of water, rain. So the one who balances Ganga, Gangadhara, the one who balances the Ganga right there up in his head. So Malai Talai Vaitava. Mudu Mudalvan, the most ancient, the one who has no birth, no death. So he's out of this vicious circle. So all these are various different aspects of Shiva that is referred to quite directly. He's in fact called as Alamarnda Chelvan, Dakshinamurti. That's Dakshinamurti, the one who is seated under the banyan tree. So he is there as Dakshinamurti. Various different forms. Shiva as Tripurantaka, as Gangadhara, the one who helped Markandeya. These Puranic episodes which speaks about Shiva and his love and mercy for his devotees all finds references in various poems of Sangam literature. But the very word Shiva is not there. That's for a fact. And Shaivism as a faith, a belief, and applying Vibhuti, all of this is there in the Sangam literature.
I want to move on to the fact that we look at Shiva and we say that three aspects: Srishti, which is creation; Sthiti, which is the maintenance; and the Samhara, which is the destruction. So we attribute Srishti, Sthiti, and Samhara to him. But you say that there are 5 different shades. So tell us, what are these 5 beyond the 3 that are most commonly known?
The number 5 as such is in very many ways connected with Shiva. He is the 5-headed one. His mantra is of 5 syllables. And so the divine acts that he performs is also 5 in number. You just listed out 3 of it, right? Srishti, Sthiti, and Samhara. To create, to sustain, and to destruct. Apart from these 3, we have the 4th called as Tirodhana, to hide. And finally, Anugraha, to bless. Shiva is in charge of creation, sustains the universe, all the life forms here. And finally, when it is time, he destructs it. But in this cycle of creation and sustenance and destruction, he will have to help out people to come out of this vicious circle of life and death. That is when Anugraha comes in. He blesses moksha or salvation to people who've attained the level. The amount of spiritual seasoning, maturity that is required, which earns you the great Shiva Padavi or moksha, to be one in oneness with Shiva at Shivalokam, to be around with him, to serve him there, to watch him perform the Ananda Tandavam. All that is a part of it. So he blesses people whom he feels are to be relieved of this life and death cycle. Till then, that Jiva is hidden, is kept in ignorance. He does not expose them to what this says. And that is where the concept of karma and everything else comes in. So till then, the amount of seasoning for the maturity of their bhakti, all that needs to happen. Till then, he keeps them hidden. The concept of moksha is kept hidden. So that is the 4th act, which is Tirodhana. And when he feels they are worthy to be released of this, to take them within him, to help them, taste the fruit of moksha. That is when anugraha happens, the fifth act. So all these five called as panchakritya, srishti, sthiti, samhara, tirotana and anugraha are all performed by Shiva.
You had this fascinating story about these three Tamil saints as an example of how he was ready to give that his anugraha even to a 3-year-old, and somebody else had to wait until they were much, much older. Can you just share that story with us?
Yeah. So we have these three most prominent Shaivite saints, saint poets, in fact, from around the 6th to the 8th century, roughly. And these three are the authors of the canonical works, Devara, split into 12 parts or 12 Tirumurais. The first 7 have been authored by these three: Tirujnana Sambandar, Tirunavukkarasar, and Sundaramurti. These are the three Nayanmars, the first and the foremost of the canonized 63 devotees of Shiva. And it is the life history of these three, very colorful and very, very interesting to understand how Shiva's mercy works. When they had to be born here in this world, it just means that they had their karma or their vinay, as it is called in Tamil, to get over. But depending on their previous births and their activities then, Shiva bestows them at a particular point of time when he thinks it is now that they are ready to receive the blessings. So we have the story of Jnana Sambandha, the youngest of all of them, who was just 3 years of age when Shiva blessed him with his divine darshan. In fact, this little kid was frightened for a moment that he missed his dad when he has accompanied his dad for his ritualistic bath, his daily bath. His dad was inside the tank taking his bath, and the little kid, not able to find his father, started crying. And that was more than enough for the all-merciful Shiva to come there that moment, along with Parvati, and requested Parvati to breastfeed this little kid. And what more do you need? And this Sambandhan till then went on to become Jnana Sambandha, the one who was fed the intellect, Shiva Jnanam as it is called. So when Parashakti breastfed him, he went on to become the greatest poet that the Tamil world has ever seen. Completely blessed. At 3 years of age, he started singing songs on Shiva. So that's at 3, quite a miracle. And his life history is just filled with miracles, where he went on traveling. He went to various pilgrimage centers, to temple towns, to temples, helped devotees there. The concept of very simple love and affection for Shiva and all his devotees will earn you moksha, will help you climb up the ladder, to help you progress spiritually. So this core concept of bhakti was taken over and spread by Jnana Sambandha. Then we have the story of his contemporary, Tirunavukkarasar, who was born in a very staunch Shaivite family, lost his parents at a very young age. And in his quest to try out different philosophies, to read and understand different faiths and tradition, he landed up becoming a Jain monk. Dharma Sena, that's how the Jains celebrated him. And he could easily win over all other faiths. At that level, Shiva thought he's got to be stopped there, and he should be brought back to this tradition. And he chose his elder sister to play the role of bringing him back to the fold. He was brought back to the fold. He was initiated by Shiva. He went around on a pilgrimage too. He, in fact, ventured the mighty Kailasha Yatra. And way back in the 7th century, Shekhilar gives us a picturesque description of all the obstructions that he had to come over to walk up to the Kailasha. After having done all that, when he was 80 years of age, that's when Shiva thought that he should be given the moksha. While Jnana Sambandha was given moksha at 16, he was initiated at 3. Tirunavukkarasar attained his moksha when he was 80. So this difference, 16 and 80, the vast difference that is there. So is the case with Sundaramurti. In fact, he is, according to tradition, an attendant of Shiva who was living there in Kailasha. He was blessed to be born here to spread the concept of Shiva Bhakti in chaste Tamil. And his wedding, in fact, was just going to happen. And that's when Shiva walked in, intervened, stopped him from getting married, brought him into the fold. And he, in fact, was a close associate of Shiva. The kind of relationship that Sundaramurti shared with Shiva, Parameshwara, is something very, very unique. Shiva was his very close associate, a friend, a good friend, in fact, with whom Sundaramurti Swamigal could share everything that was personal. In fact, Shiva helped settle Sundaramurti's scores with his own wife when he was, when he had an argument. Shiva went to her for a compromise. That's how close Shiva was, but at different ages, under different conditions, for different reasons. So it's all with him, finally, as to when he chooses to bless whom.
Now, when you think of Shiva, you think of just extremes, but you never think of him as an Alankara Priya. Not like Rama or Krishna, who constantly get decorated, and they're also Bhoga Priya. They love good food and all the sensuous aspects of life. But here you think of Shiva, and you think of him as somebody who doesn't care very much about decoration. In fact, they say it is Abhisheka Priya that Shiva is. And also, he's at one moment a yogi, then another moment he is dancing, wild and carefree. He walks without any clothes, completely without reservation. He is a husband, and yet his two sons, Ganesha and Muruga, were born out of womb, A-nidrā. He seems to defy any single categorization. So I just want you to talk a little bit about that, because here is somebody who has no avatara, but he has several names, and no parents, right? You can't think of singing a lullaby to Shiva. You can't pretend to pinch his cheek. He's not a cute little baby. So I just want you to tell us about this one for everyone and for all seasons, it seems like.
Okay, if we can answer this in a very simple phrase, that is being God. Fitting into all sorts of extremes, so that's being God. And Shiva, as we all popularly know, he is identified as the Maha Yogi, the Arundavatton, as he was referred to in Sangam literature. The great mendicant he is, the one who is always into tapas. But it is the same Shiva who turned on to become the most handsome groom ever, as Kalyana Sundara, to walk down the aisles at the wedding ceremony of Meenakshi to take her hand in a wedlock. So Shiva he's the Almighty. He can fit into any frame as per requirements. At that moment, there are stories, again, divine plays where Sundareshwara of Madurai went on to become a little kid to be fed by a woman who is waiting to feed Shiva devotees. He's come down as a bhala also. Then he comes down as the young and the most handsome groom. And he comes down as a warrior. He comes down as a hunter, an attendant, a son, at any form that you want, a mother. We have this very popular story from Tiruchirappalli, Trichy. Tayumanava Swami, he is called. The one who attended the labor of his daughter. There's this popular story of how a woman who was pregnant and her mother who was going to attend her labor, there was an urgent job. She had to cross the Kaveri and go to some other village. And when she was on her way back, there was a very heavy monsoon and Kaveri was flooded. This old lady couldn't cross the river. At the same time, her daughter is in labor. She was shouting out for help. And the Lord of Tiruchi came down as Tayumanava Swami, attended her labor, got the child and blessed her, and he disappeared. So there is absolutely no restriction for Shiva to take any form. And in any way, you dress him with whatever. You offer him anything wild also. There is absolutely no requirement about offering only flowers that are fragrant, perfumes alone, nothing. Whatever you have, however simple it is, just drop it in his name and it will be acknowledged and accepted. And the same extreme, the other extreme, we have the shrine of Tiruvaru, where Tyagaraja Swami, he is referred to as Bhoga Tyaga, on whom only flowers like rose and jasmine and jati and all that can even touch him, can even get close to him. He's very particular not to be decorated even with lotus flowers because it's pretty heavy for him. It's only the weight of rose petals that he can take. So that's how yoga and bhoga both are maintained in a line of balance by Shiva. So however simple you want to be to offer him, to worship him, whatever simple the objects of offerings are, it is all accepted and acknowledged. For a person who is regularly performing a Shiva puja, let's say there is a kind of a situation where he couldn't access his Shivalinga, his Atma Mukti. All that he has to do is probably just hold his thumb like that and do the puja, a Manasika puja. Now that's the popular mudra for Shivalingam. So a Manasika puja to his thumb there is more than enough. And that will be accepted and acknowledged by Shiva. What more do you want? That's how simple an almighty can be.
Madhu, you have this charming story of this Buddhist monk in Kanchipuram. Now, please tell me about that. That's really, really charming story that's connected to Shiva.
Yeah, that's another extreme too. So we have one of the Nayanmar saints called as Sakya Nayanar. That's quite unique, even for a name. How can a Nayanar be a Sakya, a Buddhist by name? So this is his Purana. Sakya Nayanar, as he is referred to, was living in Kanchipuram, the times when Buddhism and Jainism was quite flourishing here in South India. So on his philosophical quest, he ended up being a Buddhist. And once he went deep into the studies, he just discovered for himself that all his questions didn't have convincing answers in the school of Buddhism. Then he shifted focus, and that's when he understood Shaiva Siddhanta. Seeing it extremely convincing and quite knowledgeable, he wanted to switch over. But the times when such shifting, especially from religions like Jainism and Buddhism, he would end up being prosecuted. Afraid of that, he wanted to still worship Shiva. He chose an abandoned Shivalingam somewhere in Kanchipuram, collected a handful of pebbles every day. And on his way to the Buddhist school, he just stopped there, started pelting the Shivalingam with the stones in his hand. The pebbles were all pelted on Shiva, thrown on him. For people who were, onlookers there, they thought he being a Buddhist, he's just doing what is his rightful duty, to pelt stones on a Shivalingam there. But Sakya Nayanar considered each of it to be a fragrant flower to be offered to Shiva. This is a lotus. This is a rose. This is a jasmine. This is a hibiscus. And he started considering them. Manasika puja again there. And he was pelting stones. And this was his regular duty. It was his daily puja to Shiva. What more did Shiva needed to accompany him to Kailasha, grant him salvation, moksha, and give him the Kailasha Padavi? So we have all these sorts of extremes within the Shaivite Nayanmar history also. So someone who just maintained a garden, plucked flowers every day, garlanded them and offered them in temples, also was granted moksha, went on to become a Nayanmar, Muruga Nayanar as he is called. So however simple it is, it's the commitment, it's the love that you have, it's the uncompromising nature of serving the Lord and his devotees that Shiva looks for. And once that comes in, Shiva is all yours.
Now, these stories that you just shared with us, they are not as popular as, say, stories from itihasas like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Now, both these epics are much more embedded in the pan-Indian cultural consciousness of Indian memory. And they both belong to, one is Rama and one is Krishna, so they seem to veer more towards the Vaishnava canon. But I think people forget how pivotal and how crucial Shiva's presence and role was in both these Puranas. And I want you to now remind our viewers about those two incidents.
Sure. To answer the first part of your questions about the Nayanmar stories not being as popular as Ramayana and Mahabharata, itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata are like the works of India. It's pan-Indian. Rama has traveled the length of the country completely. And so you have various different versions of it in different languages, different accounts and all that put together. But I don't think it's academically right to consider both of them or to limit them both for just being Vaishnavite icons. I don't think you can find another great Shiva Bhakta in Ramayana and Mahabharata than Rama and Krishna. When Arjuna was when there was a requirement, any occasion, when there is a dead end, when these two prominent devatas didn't know how to sort it out, that's when they are reminded of Kailasha. That's when they are reminded of Parameshwara. Rama, for example, when he was coming back from Sri Lanka after fighting the Rama-Ravana Yuddha, after winning, the Sri Lankan country there, he was traveling on the Pushpaka Vimana, accompanied by Janaki and all his attendants there. And that's when he was crossing southern India, when he entered India, he pointed out very clearly to Janaki, Sita, and says, it was right there, Mahadeva blessed me. So this Mahadeva, I don't think any other devata is called as Mahadeva, but for Shiva. So Shiva has blessed Rama throughout, and there are several episodes of Skanda Jananam and Markandeya, the Anugraham that Shiva did for Markandeya, and all that elaborated in Ramayana also, apart from the Puranas. So several episodes of the greatness of Shiva is seen there in Ramayana. If you take Mahabharata, the incidences are even more. You have Krishna, who advises Arjuna to go and tease Parameshwara through his tapas, to request him for Pashupata Astra, that one Astra which can help the Pandavas win the Kurukshetra war. And so did Arjuna too. And Shiva and Parvati came to him as the hunter couple, and Shiva blessed him with the Pashupata Astra. Then there is this Kailasha Yatra that Krishna and Arjuna did. When Krishna requested Shiva to bless Arjuna, what more do you want to understand that Shiva himself considered Parameshwara to be a great, to be the Almighty? Then you have Bhishma Pitamaha, the one who knows everything as it was happening in the Mahabharata time, to speak about Mahadeva Mahima. He just goes on and on and on to speak about all those great episodes where Shiva came down right at the moment to safeguard his devotees, to stand by them, to help them. So time and again, there are so many incidences in Mahabharata that the great Shiva Bhakta, Advaiti, Appaya Dikshita, authored a work called as Mahabharata Tatparya Manjari, wherein he very clearly proves through academic arguments about how Mahabharata is all about speaking the greatness of Shiva. So we have these two epics which keeps talking the greatness of Shiva, and the most prominent devatas who are there as a part of the epic. You have Rama and Krishna there, who themselves have exhibited their Shiva Bhakti time and again. So Mahabharata, that's exactly how both these works, which several of us, we think that these are Vaishnavite works, or as a matter of fact, these are also accepted by the Shaivites. Starting from the Vedas, Itihasas, all the 18 Puranas and the Agamas are all Pramanas here. So Mahabharata and Ramayana are pretty much to be studied and worshipped by Shaivites also. So Shiva is there everywhere around. That's how it's looked at. So these two texts for Shaivites speaks about the greatness of Parameshwara.
Over the last, I would say, 10 years, there's been a whole resurgence in the genre of historical fiction or mythological fiction. And Shiva has figured very prominently. And this has led to the younger generation now looking at him as this cool dude, very nonchalantly smoking a hookah or wearing torn jeans. Or I've seen an image of Shiva with his matted locks riding a motorbike. So he seems to, as I say, fit even for today's generation, where he seems to be far more accessible and almost like a friend. And we did speak earlier about, categorization. But he's also Bholenath, He seems to be everywhere, all-knowing, and yet he's such a simpleton. So this is, for me, extremely charming. But I want to come back to the 5 aksharas, Madhu. Na, ma, shi, va, ya. You spoke about the number 5 being so important for Shiva. I want you to tell us why they call this the Moola Mantra.
Every deity is assigned with a Moola Mantra. The bija or the seed is very, very important. And here for Shiva, it's the Namah Shivaya mantra. The 5 the 5 syllables that makes up this mantra. Each of it actually refers to one of those 5 divine acts of Shiva that we just discussed. So we have, starting from Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Tirodhana, and Anugraha, all understood through each of the alphabet there. It's in fact, you have 5 combinations to this 5-lettered mantra. You can chant Namah Shivaya or Shivaya Namah, or you can just keep alternating the first letter alone, and you have 5 combinations there in hand. Depending on what your requirement is, why exactly you are initiated into the mantra and the reason that you chant the mantra determines the combination, the order in which the letters are combined to get the mantra. So if it is Shivaya Namah, that is what is generally used as the Mula mantra when you're initiated into Shaiva. And that is supposed to bless you, bring in all the anugraha of Shiva. If it's Namah Shivaya, it's to come out of Ajnana. So you have these different reasons for which one is initiated or one is into the Shiva Namak Japam. So that way, the permutation combinations comes out with 5 different versions of the Panchakshara mantra. And so, as it is for any deity, the Panchakshara mantra for Shiva is the Mula mantra, and it is like the root, the seed from which everything comes out.
I want to now come to the idea and the area and space of women in Shaivism. You know, when we talk and think about famous Shaiva women poets, in Tamil Nadu, we have Karaikal Ammayar, who asked to be made old really quickly so that she didn't want anybody to look at her, and so she could spend her life in the adoration and worship of Shiva. And then we start moving north, and then we go to Karnataka, and we have the women, the most popular being Akka Mahadevi, and who shed everything and said, I don't want even the clothes. And then, of course, we have the famous Lalo Laldev in Kashmir. But my question to you, Madhu, is, I have noticed that women in Shaivism, even today, we're talking of today, 2021, have far more freedom, more autonomy, more flexibility, and power to even perform pujas compared to the women in Vaishnavism. And I just want you to elaborate on that. Why is it? Why do you think the reasons are? Yes, we have patriarchy, yes, but then why is it that the women in today, contemporary, modern day India, the Shaiva women, enjoy more freedom?
I think it starts from Shakti being an integral part, you know, the feminine counterpart of Shiva. She is an integral part in the literal sense. I don't think any of the popular schools of Shaivism prescribes Shiva to be worshipped all as an individual, you know, negating Shakti from him. That's not even possible. They're equal forces which will work when they get together. And, you know, that's a quintessence of Shaivism here. And we pray to Shiva as that Almighty who's along with Shakti. And quite interestingly, in almost all the cases of the Nayanmars, the Charitrams, when he had to bless them, he comes down along with Devi. So there is no occasion where he was all by himself to bless them. So in all occasions, it's Shiva and Shakti together. I think it starts from there. So we have saints, saint poetess who've sung about him, who've fallen in love with him, who admire him as that young, charming guy to whom they wanted to get married. And on the other extreme, we have Karaikal Ammayar, who just wanted to be at his service, to remain there right at the shadow of his feet throughout and sing for him whenever he dances. And that after shedding all her youth, she wanted, in fact, give up on all her, the flesh and everything. Wanted to become, get the figure of a ghost. So that people wouldn't want to get associated with her. She had all her self for Shiva, dedicated to Shiva completely, because he is surrounded by the
She walked on her hands.
Yes, to Kailasha. Oof. That's a yoga by itself. It's not easy to walk up to the zenith of Kailasha on your feet. So one will have to balance upside down. And I think there is some scientific tools that are being employed to prove this for a fact, because Krishna also, when he went on his pilgrimage to Kailasha, he's also walked upside down along with Arjuna. So for anybody to reach the zenith of Kailasha, you'll have to walk upside down. It seemed to be a requirement. So did Karikalamaya. And when she was commanded to go down south to the holy city of Tiru-Alangad near Chennai, she came down on her hands again. She walked all the way down south on her hands, stayed here to get the darshan of Shiva, finally only to request him that I'm not worried about how many ever births that I take, but in any birth, please ensure that I don't forget you. In any birth, I have no objection. Give me more birth, but in every birth that you bless me with, ensure that I don't forget you. And whenever you dance, I just want to be there in your proximity to sing and play the cymbals for your dance. So we have women who fallen in love with him, women who wanted to be his bhakta, to sing for him. And so we have all these different extremes. And more interestingly, getting initiated into Shaiva Siddhanta, irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman, the gender does not really matter there. It's the same way that anybody is initiated into. And when the Acharya decides that this individual is matured enough to be blessed with the Shivalingam for them, as their Atma Murti, as we call it, for them to worship every day, women are also pretty much gifted one, and they also worship the Murti. So this tradition of having a Murti for oneself and worshipping it, taking it wherever they go, is seen there in almost all schools of Shaivism. We've had the stories of Kapalikas, the women who were practicing Kapala school, the Kapalika school, Vamamargis, all extremes. And there again, we have women who were a part of it, initiated into it, actively participated in the rituals to attain moksha. So gender really doesn't seem to be an issue here to perform Shiva Puja or to be initiated through a Mula Mantra to worship him. So everyday Anushtana, everyday Bhasma Dharana, all that is also there the same way for women here in Shaivism. So that way, yes, it seemed to be quite naturally progressive.
I just want to recap for our viewers that both in Vaishnavism and in Shaivism, women can receive the Diksha. And actually, in both streams of faith, women are allowed at that point to perform the puja. But it is in Shaivism that the women actually have their personal linga and they can do it in the privacy of their homes. And the Vaishnava women are somehow prevented and prohibited from doing it by their own men. So being Vaishnavite, I can say it. I can say patriarchy is overarching. And so I've said it, Madhu, you don't have to worry about saying it. Yeah. Now I want to go to some extreme schools of Shaivism. And you were talking about one in Gujarat. So why don't you tell us about that?
Okay. One of the oldest school of Shaivism, historically dated, is called as the Pashupata School. And this school is attributed to Lakulisha, who is historically placed roughly around the 1st century, give and take 100 years this way, that way, that's roughly 2000 years back. He was born in this little village called Kharwan. It's called Kharwan today in Gujarat. And this school of thought, the Pashupata Shaivas, as they are called, propagated through the Pashupata Sutras, the text which describes the traditions, their philosophy, has seemed to have spread across India. As early as around the 7th century, that's like half a millennium from its time of origin, it's reached down south. You have temples in today's Nagapattinam and Kumbakonam, where the temple is identified as a Kaya Rohan school, or that school which is propagated by Lakulisha, wherein alighting to moksha without even shedding the physic is possible. So we have these Talapuranas in all these temples where a Maharishi, is identified as a person who attained moksha with his sharira. So the Kaya Arohana, Kaya is your physical self, Kayam. And that going up to moksha as such, without even shedding it, that's a popular school which is managed to spread across India. And from that, you have other branches like the Kalamukas, the people who anoint their face with black paste. And then you have the Kapalikas, those who worship the Bhairava form of Shiva. So they always hold a Kapala Patra for themselves. And they're supposed to go around collecting alms and eat and drink in it. And they generally reside, they are like residents of cremation grounds, Mashana. They have rituals which is to general public considered unorthodox. So you have women also who accompany them into such traditions. So you have the Vamamargis, you have the Bhairavas, the Kapalikas, Kalamukas, and all of them. So all these schools have branched out from one from another, and it is spread across India. And here in down south, we have a not so extreme school, Shaiva Siddhanta, who identify these schools as Shaivite schools, but philosophically different from theirs. So here we have the Siddhanta Saivam. Up north we have the Kashmira Saivam. So across India you have various different branches of Shaivism, each of it with its own tradition. At this point, I think I would like to recall that comment of yours on the pop culture portraying Shiva as a very, cool dude. So yeah, we have certain rituals of the Pashupatas where they get intoxicated, where they do all sorts of, activities that which would chop off their relationship with the common public. They just want to alienate themselves, isolate themselves. So they develop a natural instinct to stay away from the worldly pleasures, to stay in the forest, to be cave dwellers, to go around collecting alms and eating. And so that's in fact a part of the tradition. And these schools that are common in North India probably have paved way for pop culture portraying Shiva that way. So that's restricted to that school. And you have, as we discussed, extremes of all sorts here in Shaivism.
When we go to a Shiva temple, we receive the Vibhuti, a little amount of the ash. We take it within our 2 fingers, we put a little bit on our forehead, and then we tap the rest away. Now, why do we tap it away? Why are we not supposed to bring back or outside the temple or bring that Vibhuti back home? What is the significance of that?
The tradition being anything that you're blessed with in a Shiva's temple, it's yours. But saving it for a later use is not generally prescribed. It's for you for that moment. He's just blessed you and it is for you. Whatever little Vibhuti is given, we are supposed to apply it completely on our forehead. If you think that might not be your kind, so then you can probably take the rest on your head and leave it there. But leaving it in one corner or in all those colorful cups kept in the temple is not prescribed. So you're supposed to apply it on you, because as the name goes, it's wealth, Vibhuti, the most supreme wealth that anybody can ever gather. And the rest, so they just ensure that it's not taken around. And as the tradition goes, Vibhuti is to be, taken from the hands of people who are initiated into the schools. So it's not that we go around giving Vibhuti to anybody whom we meet. The reason why we're very particular that we take the Vibhuti from the acharyas, the priests, the ordained priests in the temples. So they there stand in the place of Shiva to bless us with it. They're like representatives. And if that is given, it is for you from Shiva. You don't share it around with people. We don't have the rights to do it. So if there is anything remaining in our hands, we're supposed to clap it off. And that's where you have the shrine of Chandikeshwara, who generally occupies, the northern corridor of any Shiva's shrine. And as you go around circumambulating, just clap whatever little Vibhuti is remaining off and you walk past. You also tell him, just exhibit for a fact that you're not carrying anything for a later use. So your hands are clean.
What is the significance of the Rudraksha and its connection with Shiv?
Of all the different symbols that denote Shiva, 5 objects are considered to be very important and auspicious. We have Bhasma, Vibhuti, the sacred ash. We have Rudraksha, the seed that is there from a special tree. And you have the Bilva Patra, the 3-leaved Bilva. Then you have the Panchakshara, the mantra. Finally, the 5th is the Linga form. So all these 5 are supposed to represent Shiva, auspicious symbols that represent Shiva. Of these, we have Rudraksha, literally translated that which means the eyes of Shiva. So the third eye of Shiva, called Virupaksha, is the most special attribute of Shiva. Like his Jatabhara, like the Neelakanta, the blue-colored, blue complexion throat, the third eye is very, very unique to Shiva. It's believed that these seeds came out of the third eye and it grew into these trees, tall trees. And it's the seeds from those trees which came out, which was born from the third eye of Shiva. And hence, the most sought after emblem of Shiva, and it has got to be respected as much as Shiva himself. All these five, a Vilvapatra or a cup of Vibhuti, the Linga Murtam or the Panchakshara Mantra, all these five are to be respected at par with Shiva. They are Shiva. So Rudraksha is as much as that. So it is revered and it is used. And as the prescription goes, it is supposed to be worn in different parts of your bodies. And that is a common feature in all schools of Shaivism that you see. Be it the Pashupatas to Kapalikas to Kalamukas to Siddhanta Shaivas, everybody wear a Rudraksha. So it's a symbol of Shiva himself.
On the occasion of Maha Shivratri, I wanted to talk about the day before, which is Pradosham, and Maha Shivratri. While there is a Shivratri that comes every month and a Pradosham that comes every month, this month of Masi is when Maha Shivratri comes, but Pradosham is equally important. So there is a part of a myth that is associated with Pradosham. So for our viewers, I want you to quickly tell us what the Pradosham significance is, what Shiva does, and why Nandi is important. And then we move on to Maha Shivratri.
Sure. Pradosham day succeeds the Ekadashi Tithi. Ekadashi is the 11th day of Paurnami and Amavasya, the new moon and the full moon. And it is believed on this day, the Ekadashi, that is when the Devas and Asuras, the Celestials, Devas and Asuras, went on to churn the Milky Ocean.
The churn, Amrita Manthan.
Amrita Manthan happened. And it was then that the poor Vasuki, who couldn't bear the pain, she just spit the venom, Alahala Visham. So that which was extremely poisonous, and being affected by it, not knowing what to do, they said that the Devatas, all of them, ran to Kailasha. That's their venue. End of the day, wherever they are, whatever happens, it's Kailasha Parvatam that they run helter-shelter. And after having gone there, in a state of confusion, not knowing what to do, they went around circumambulating, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. They were circumambulating the Kailasha Parvatam. And that was the 13th day, which is the Pradosham day. So that is why, because the Devatas were churning the Milky Ocean, they were completely engrossed in it that they didn't take food. Generally, Ekadashi is considered as a day for fasting for all of us. So this fasting is basically for Shiva. And one day later, when Vasuki started spitting the venom, when the venom was out, it was on the 13th day that they ran there to Kailasha and went around the Kailasha Parvatam, requesting Shiva to walk in them and help them. And that was again the same day when Shiva requested his attendant, Halala Sundara, to go and collect the venom, all of it that was spilled. And he just rolled it into a small volume and he quickly consumed it. If there is anybody who could take the strength of that venom, it was Shiva. And so he just consumed it. And at that moment, Parashakti, who was sitting just next to him, seeing this, held his throat tight. She held Shiva's throat tight, and by that divine touch of hers, the venom turned into Amrita. So that's the touch of Devi. So when she is there, she is capable of even converting or changing venom into Amrita, and it turned out to be Amrita that stayed in his throat always. So after having consumed the Alahala Visham, poison, Shiva was very happy that his devotees were all relieved the pain that they were enduring. And he started dancing. And that happened in the evening times, the dusk. So between 4:30 to 6 in the evenings. And that's when Shiva started dancing. And as he was dancing, Nandi requested to be his pedestal, his stage for him to dance. The reason why Shiva balanced himself in between the two horns of Nandi and he performed his Sandhya Nritta. the dance of the evening. And hence, the Ekadashi Vratam comes in for Shiva. And on the 13th day, we go to Shiva temples in the evening hours. We are also struck by something that is poisonous, need not necessarily be alahala. The very samsara here, it has a lot of traps. So to be relieved of this, we request. We also do a pradakshanam which is unique. We go partly clockwise, partly anti-clockwise, called as Somasukta pradakshanam. Then have a darshan of Shiva, managing to get the frame of the Shivalingam between the horns of Nandi. So we stand behind the Nandi, the bull there, and take a darshan. We focus Shiva between the horns of the Nandi and worship him that evening. So between 4:30 to 6:30 is the Pradosha Kalam. And though it happened on the 13th day, every day, that particular time is considered to be very, very auspicious for Shiva Puja. So much so, there has been a tradition where several Shaivites observe a vow of silence between 4:30 to 6 in the evenings and spend their time in japa and remembering all these Puranic episodes where Shiva helped his devotees. So that's the significance of Pradosham.
And now the Maha Shivratri that comes once a year, where we are told where all the energies of the universe concentrate, and it is suggested that we don't sleep, that we stay awake. So just elaborate for us, what is the significance of staying awake all night on Maha Shivratri?
So we just discussed about what happened till the 13th day, right, from Amrita Manthan.
Yes.
Shivratri is the Chaturdasi, the 14th day, the next day. And that was when Shiva stood awake the whole night, because it's a tradition. If you're inflicted by poison, just in case to ensure that your body functions are going regular as when you're awake.
You're not allowed to sleep.
Local medicine. It's a local medicine, a medical practice to stay awake one full night. And so did Shiva. So he being the Maha Yogi, he started a tapas that night. And seeing him staying awake that night, Parvati started worshipping him. So all the 4 quadrants of the 14th night went on to become the 4 quarters of the 14th night, went on to become very, very auspicious to worship Shiva. And this happened in the month of Masi, the 14th night preceding Amavasya, in the month of Masi, and hence the Maha Shivratri Vratam is observed. So as Shiva stood awake for the night, as Parvati worshipped him, so did all the other Shiva Bhaktas. So all the Devatas, all Rishis, all Mahacharyas, all his Bhaktas installed a Shivalingam and started worshipping it through the night. So, each quarter has a special flower to be offered, a special food offering to be made, depending on the part of the night, and he is to be worshipped. Imagine a night just being reserved in tradition for the worship of Shiva. And when zillions of people, his devotees, starting from Maha Kailasha, everywhere around the world, want to worship him, staying awake that night, what better can be a time to just accumulate the power of all the Shivalingams that's just being worshipped through the night. Yeah, so walk into any Shiva temple, you see thousands of people there, and when all of them worship together, and remember, the first person to worship is none but Devi herself. So starting from Devi, everybody is worshipping. There cannot be a better time to reap as much of power, the strength of faith, especially of a strength of, union, being amongst so many devotees and being a part of a prayer which everybody is making. So what more can be there as an auspicious night to spend? The reason why Shiva stays awake the whole night, and, the Ardhajama Puja is not conducted. They just start with the Shivratri Puja by around 6 in the evening, goes on till dawn the next day.
Since we're coming to the end of our conversation, I want to invite you, Madhu, to chant or sing something that is dear to your heart, something that is apt for this occasion.
Sure. Maybe a Tevaram of Upper, where he says how great the Panchakshara Mantram is, the Namashivaya Mantram is. Chotrunai Vediyan Sodivanavan பொற்றுனை தீருதடி பொருந்த கை தொழ சொற்றுனை வேதியல் சோதிவானவன் பொற்றுனை தீருதடி பொருந்த கை தொழ கற்றுனை பூட்டியோர் கடலில் பாய்ச்சினோ கற்றுனை பூட்டியோர் கடலில் பாய்ச்சினோ நற்றுணையாவது நமசிவாயதே கற்றுனை பூட்டியோர் கடலில் பாய்ச்சினோ நற்றுணையாவது நமசிவாயதே.
Thank you.
It says that even when you are tied to a rock, you're just roped to a rock and you're dropped in the midst of an ocean, even at that occasion, the Namasivaya mantram will come to your rescue. And so it did happen to Appar when he was troubled by one of the kings for having entered into Shaivite tradition, and he was, as a miracle, washed ashore quite safely. So that's the greatness of Panchakshara mantram.
Thank you, Madhu. I know that you've spoken about something very, very dear to your heart, and I know we can continue the conversation for much longer, but for now it's a wrap. And we have delved into the many worlds and many facets of the one who is someone to everyone. You can call him Lingaraja, Bhairava, Mahadev, and beyond. So I want to wish you all this, that you soak in the very special energies of the next few hours. Wherever you are in the world, remember, the time of the Maha Shivratri will come to you. Try to stay awake and experience the constellation of the universe, where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are in prayer, in meditation, and in celebration. Thank you for joining us. Thank you once again, Madhu, and thank you.
My pleasure, Akka. Thank you.